And welcome to the show or to the conference.
Thank you.
I'm a fan of what you guys are doing with mempool.space. I also recently advertised mempool.space on one of my recent shows as well. But yeah, let's start with a bit about you guys. Do you want to just introduce yourselves a little bit for anyone watching?
I'm Wiz, and I love Bitcoin. That's all you need to know.
How about you, Simon?
That's the second.
Yeah, I'm a Bitcoiner, and I go to all these Hackers Congress conferences usually, except for this year. And I work for Bitcoin mostly.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're pretty much full-time Bitcoiners, working on like mempool space, and I do a lot of
since like 6 months, it's been all in on this stuff, and that's been great.
Yeah, well, I mean,
cool,
mempool.space is a great project. Maybe you guys want to tell us a little bit about how mempool.space got started.
Yeah, it actually started in Prague at the Hackers Congress 2018. When I was in the Bitcoin cafe, as you might know, and I saw the TV they had on the wall. They had a Bitcoin Wisdom price feed over there. And I got this idea, like, the prices could be interesting sometimes, but what if you could like visualize the Bitcoin blockchain instead? Just show the blocks ticking there, like live. So that's why I got the idea. So I started coding like the next day, and I got a mock-up of something, and then like a couple of months later, I got a nice design, and I got what predates the current site with a mempool visualized as blocks, and the blockchain and the real-time blocks coming in like that. So that was the first version of the site that went live. Was live for like a year before it became the full block explorer, which is today.
Yeah, I remember the first version was really simple. Like, it was really just a mempool visualizer, and it was like just the blocks. And
yeah, it was still a transaction tracker, so it was still useful. And
right.
People were using it to search for that transaction, and they could see the transaction jump from the mempool to the blocks and stuff, which is the main feature today as well.
Yeah. I think for me, that was one of the really innovative features, because at that time, I don't think anybody else had done block visualization in that way, right? Like, you could search on a block explorer on, say, blockstream.info, or in the old days, blockchain.info, or some of the other ones. But mempool.space was the first one where you could basically take your Bitcoin transaction ID and figure out which block it actually is in line to be in. So how did you come up with that idea?
I don't quite remember, but for me it was quite naturally. I just sorted the mempool in blocks. I can't remember really, actually. It was, but to me it was all natural that this is the way it's supposed to be. When you visualize how the mempool, like how to visualize the mempool as something like a graph or something. Yeah, but just split it into blocks, sort it by highest fee, and you basically get a estimation.
There are like other blockchain visualizers that have the blockchain blocks, but I think Simon's real innovation was having the mempool visualized as projected blocks, and that was really unique innovation.
Yeah, but I never liked all the block explorers. Like, there's just a table, they don't visualize the blockchain, but the blockchain is, in my mind, it looks like a chain of blocks. Why not show it like that? That was the most natural thing to me. So,
and now it's really cool. Like, Simon actually improved that so that if a projected block gets mined, you can actually visualize it moving directly from the mempool to the blockchain. It's very subtle, but he worked really hard to make that, and nobody else really has that, right? But that's still like the extension of the original version 1 mempool visualizer. I guess the time that Simon and I first started talking is when he was he probably had run it for like maybe 6 or 8 months. I think it was like after 2017.
Yeah.
The first time the mempool really got full was 2017, right? This is when Wu Jihan of Bitmain was like intentionally spamming the mempool with high fee transactions to raised the overall fees. Because I guess if you're getting like 50% of the hash rate, you don't really care. It's like a net gain, and also the whole covert ASIC boost drama. But yeah, like around that time, I guess that's why Simon wanted to visualize the mempool, because before then there wasn't really a mempool. Like it never really got full ever.
Good point.
Right. So that was like the first real mempool. I mean, there's a few other mempool visualizers that are really cool. But I think Simon's design is the best. So yeah, that's around the time I met Simon. I just randomly messaged him. I was like, yo, like, can you send me all your source code? I want to open source this. I want to write it on my Raspberry Pi. And he's like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And so we did it. And the version 1 was really cool. Made a GitHub page and documentation. I think we moved it to my servers at some point after that. Like no ads or anything after that. What was the next step, Simon? Do you remember?
I remember it was a struggle with the backend, keeping it in sync with the Bitcoin core nodes. I was like constant search for something, like how could I solve the backend, like code something myself or find something.
Yeah, that was a big step. I remember, I think even before that, like we were we were at least experimenting with making like a full block explorer just directly connected to Bitcoin Core. Yeah. And you kind of got it working, but I remember the problem was if you tried to query an address that had like hundreds of thousands of transactions, it would just completely freeze up because Bitcoin Core didn't have all that data like readily indexed and quickly available.
Yeah, but it wasn't just like, it was just regular transactions that were particularly heavy, like that had like a few hundreds of inputs or outputs. It would take seconds to query, and that's just too long.
And during that time, the entire site is basically just dead. So it had a lot of issues. And eventually, like we were looking at different like Electrum servers, and I think we were looking at blockstream.info, and they obviously developed their own fork of Electris, which is like their re-implementation of the Electrum server in Rust. And so they added like new indexes and stuff, and that's what they, I guess, developed for their Liquid blockchain explorer for blockstream.info. Because really, like, it's not really Blockstream's business model to have like a block explorer, right? They mostly developed it just for like Liquid as part of the additional infrastructure. And so it does like mainnet, testnet, and Liquid basically. And so I think, Simon, like, when do you remember, when did we realize that Electris was like the best backend for us?
I remember we started using that for V1. And then when I experimented like querying addresses and everything, I was like, wow, I can make a full block explorer of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that was like in the end of last year, I think. So
yeah, I'm curious on that actually. With the best backend and stuff, I saw maybe a couple months ago there was a Jameson Lopp post about, and he was comparing the different Electrum servers, right? Because there's Electrum X, there's Electras, there's Explorer, and it's kind of like, I think the conclusion they came to for that was like, basically, if you're like a single user, maybe usually Electris probably makes the most sense, and then if you're serving lots of users, Electrum X normally is kind of like the best option for that kind of model. But how did it work for you guys with mempool.space?
Yeah, so I run like the servers and stuff, and Simon's the genius developer and coder. So we make a really good team in that sense. Is that it probably took me like a full-on month, kind of like Jameson did, where he was experimenting with how to run it and different hardware setups, memory, SSDs. Eventually, I figured out that actually there's a certain type of SSD called NVMe, like non-volatile memory modules, which is just it's like RAM, but it doesn't, lose its data when you disconnect the power. So it's just as fast as RAM is, but it's persistent. And so that's actually what I actually got several of those, and I made like a RAID 0 using ZFS on FreeBSD with just a ton of RAM. So that basically it's just fast as hell. For Electris. It took me like a full month. I remember like I told Simon, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna make a server with like 0.5 terabyte of RAM, and he's like, you're crazy. Like, but after you see how fast the site is, like, wow, we made the fastest block explorer backend in all of Bitcoin. That was really cool. And I know Jameson was really interested in that too. Like, what's the best way to run it? You really do have to like drop some cash and invest in the hardware. But exactly like you said, Stephan, once you do, you can serve, thousands and thousands of users off that just one server packet. And we do. I think we're up to like 15, 20,000 daily active users. Like, unique people are using our site, which is really amazing. Every time I look at the stats, I like, can't believe it. It's like an average of like every 5 seconds, a new user hits the site. That's,
Yeah, I really like it. I mean, I use it whenever I'm about to do a like an on-chain transaction. I normally quickly check mempool.space and see, okay, like kind of, it helps me target exactly what range I want. Like if I'm just kind of, if I'm like, I want this kind of in the next few blocks, you kind of, I now, in fairness, that's probably a bit more of an intermediate or advanced level Bitcoiner thing. Maybe a beginner Bitcoiner is not going to think about those kinds of things. But I think over time, we're just going to see, as new waves of people come in, we're going to have a lot more people into those intermediate and advanced level Bitcoiners who want that info. And I really like the point you were making earlier, Wiz, which is that nobody thought to do this until the blocks started to get filled. And even now today, it's not the blocks that are constantly filled. Sometimes they're filled and sometimes they're just zero, or close to, right? And so I guess that's a really interesting question as well. Like, what happens over the next few years? Are we going to see that kind of up and down, up and down? What do you guys think?
Well, obviously, Satoshi intended for Bitcoin to have a fee market. The blocks are going to get full, and the mempool is going to be a huge thing, and fee estimation. And the real concept of a mempool explorer, I think, is something that we've been kind of pushing. Obviously, there's lots of other block explorers, but they were most of them are written or developed in the time when the mempool was empty, and we're kind of focusing on the mempool because that's what really matters. Like you said, it's like having a car dashboard or something. You want to know, you want to have that real-time information so you can make the decisions about, do I want to pay an extra 100 sats per V-byte for this, or do I want to just put it like 2 or 3? And if you don't have that information about how quickly new transactions are coming into the mempool or how much they're typically paying right now, like, it's really hard to make an informed decision. So I guess that's the goal we're trying to do. It's like you said, it's not exactly for beginners. And it's always a challenge. Like, like Simon and I fight all the time. How should we make the website? Is it for simple? Is it for new users, or intermediate or advanced? Do we want to keep it cluttered? Do we want to keep it simple? Yeah, I think Simon and I just fight about the design of the site so much.
So which one of you wants to make it more advanced, and which one of you wants to keep it beginner friendly?
Well, I used to say I'm a bit on the conservative side. I try to keep it very simple, and when there's a new change, I want to think about it for like a month before I actually implement it.
Or a year,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've one thing that I find that's funny as well, and I think you guys can probably relate to this also, is that there are times when you go to do an on-chain transaction, and you check mempool.space, and I see, all right, maybe 5 sats per byte is going to be, it's going to be reasonably cheap, but not like paying for the next block sort of thing. Yeah. And you put that transaction through, but then the mempool kind of gets away from you, because then all these other people put their transactions in at that same or just above you, right? So they might go in at 6 or 7 or 8 sats per byte, and now you're like, oh man, no, I'm waiting. Have you guys seen that? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, that's the tricky part of like fee estimation in general, is that it's not possible to predict fees, because you cannot predict when someone's going to just dump the mempool, and that happens just at random points in time. And you have big players like BitMEX that suddenly they dump like regularly at certain schedules. If you look at the fee just 5 minutes before that happened, you're going to get outbid by them. Yeah. So I mean, fee estimation in general is really tricky, and I've been thinking about it a lot, like how to make it. And I don't like our fee estimator that we're using on our site is just completely mempool based. So you get a current snapshot of what is the best fee to get into the next block, like at this moment. And that moment is probably gonna work for the next 5 to 10 minutes, but then it's not gonna be accurate anymore. But if you look at the traditional fee estimator, they usually use some kind of statistical model, which sometimes make you overpay by a lot, or that's usually what happens. I've seen a lot of feedback saying that using the mempool.space fee estimator, they have reduced their fee that they use by a lot, and they still get into the blockchain, and it's probably 95% of the time. So it's not like 100% accurate. So it's more like a model, and it's more like a statistical
you
thing.
really have like real-time information of the mempool, like exactly when you do the transaction. And like you're saying, one of two things will always happen to screw you up. Either someone will dump a huge amount of transactions like BitMEX o'clock, where you're just buried, and they're usually paying an extremely high rate, or there's just no blocks mined for 2 hours.
Yeah, you can just have bad luck, right?
Exactly, like just variance in mining. It's kind of like an unavoidable thing. And so that's actually a big problem for, well, not a big problem, but it was an issue on BISC. So mempool.space does like the fee estimation for BISC network. And one of the issues we have, we were using the medium priority, which is usually like a reasonably good choice. But exactly what you said, Stephan, like, since every BISC trade is like several on-chain transactions, if one of them gets like buried and backlogged, that really screws up the whole like BISC trade experience. And so recently, like, we just changed BISC to use the high priority fee, because it's, you're probably paying like 10 or 15% more in fees, but you have a significantly lower chance of getting backlogged, and that's really the main problem, right? And so like the downside of that is when the mempool is full, like it is now, and you're easily seeing like over 100 sats per VByte, it kind of prices layer one apps out of Bitcoin. Like BISC, you're going to spend like $10 or $12 in fees for $100 trade on BISC. That doesn't make sense, right? And so, people are upset, like, Wiz, why are you raising the fees to high priority? Like it's, dude, like, this is how Bitcoin works. Like, BISC is just priced out. We need to move into layer 2. Don't blame me for like, mempool.
Yeah, they're shooting the messenger, right?
Well, I'm just trying to keep, like, I'm like the ops guy or whatever. I'm trying to keep the network and the trades flowing. But some people don't see it like that, right? They see it as like this bad thing. Like, why is the mempool full? It'll be interesting to see how that develops over time, because everybody is going to have this problem, right? And everybody's going to get priced out, and eventually, it will cost $50 to do an on-chain transaction, right?
Yeah, and so then it's gonna, I guess, that also changes who your target user will be as well, because then there'll be a lot of people who are only doing stuff on Lightning, or you know what I mean. So yeah, but it's interesting to see what happens with that. I think, but you're right. I think that's also the point you were making around considering what gets priced in and what's priced out. And over time, we're going to see maybe it's going to go towards bigger and bigger transactions that are done on chain, and all the smaller stuff that's going to be Lightning. Maybe some people will use Liquid. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about how you're kind of involving the different kind of layers in the Bitcoin world, let's say Liquid and other things, into mempool.space.
That's a good question. Obviously, like exactly like what you just said, smaller transactions, like if you're going to buy a coffee for $5, you're not going to spend $20 in fees. So naturally, the mempool.space project is going to support like layer 2 networks. So we already have BISC and Liquid working on there. Maybe someday we'll add Lightning too when it makes sense. But yeah, like that's kind of the inevitable thing. Like even for BISC, if you want to, it's not even about being priced out. It's just about saving money. So, even if you are doing a large trade on BISC for, say you're going to buy one Bitcoin, you're going to spend $10,000. Well, you still don't want to pay $100 in fees anyway, even if that's only 1%. And so, maybe BISC will move to like a side chain like Liquid, or adopt some kind of Lightning RGB protocol, something like this in the future. And mempool.space is going to have to, support that as well. I know, Simon, what do you think? You're the
I think that the market will do its work on on the fees. I believe. Like I'm not sure if we're gonna see like up to $100 fees, because as you said, it's gonna price out so many things that it will clear space for more relevant stuff. So let's see, all the coffee payments will be gone, and maybe block explorers, and they will start thinking, they will start get more incentives to actually implement SegWit, batching, and all this stuff that they're not doing today. Like, you know, that Binance or blockchain.info, the biggest wallets, are not even using SegWit yet. So there's still a lot of room for optimizations there. And even like Schnorr, Taproot, all this stuff is vastly will optimize the blockchain vastly. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit still to remove before we can just we have to move to layer 2 solutions. So I think that will be a process that will go on for the coming like 5 years, I believe. Yeah. So I don't think that the fees will just skyrocket and stay there. I think it will find some kind of equilibrium, maybe a $50 per transaction or something at peak hours, and then
you're right.
The market will work in ways that we cannot really anticipate right at this moment. So I think it will.
Yeah. Here's one of my speculations. I think there's a funny kind of seesaw effect here, right? So as the fees really start to rise, a lot more exchanges and people will start thinking, oh, okay, I need to use Lightning, or whether I need to use, whether that's custodial scaling. And so it's kind of like the fees will go really high, but then it'll sort of tip back the other way, because then all the clever engineers will go to work and make new wallets and Lightning, and then it'll kind of tip it back down the other way once everyone jumps onto Lightning, as an example. So how are you thinking about that idea, and then how to support that with mempool.space? Yeah,
the idea with mempool right now is to be like a complete Bitcoin ecosystem explorer. So that's why we're supporting the testnet, we're supporting the Liquid sidechain, we're supporting BISC. We're not supporting like Litecoin or any altcoin. That's not at all in our roadmap. So if everything, if we get more layer 2 stuff, Lightning or other stuff, we are certainly looking at building everything. And we already have like some connections between the networks. So if you're at a certain transaction that's a peg in or peg out the Liquid, there's actually a displayed link there. You can actually go jump between the networks and follow the peg ins and peg outs like that.
That's cool. Wiz, anything to add?
Yeah, like it'll be cool to see how the it's kind of like the previous topic too. Like as the transactions get more optimized or batched or SegWit, like even like BISC right now, one trade is I think 4 on-chain transactions, and none of them are SegWit. So right now BISC is adding SegWit, and I think BISC is also going to reduce the number of on-chain transactions to only like 1 or 2. So yeah, just by using that smaller amount of space, we'll get the cost per transaction down, even though the rate will be going higher. And then when you want to visualize that, because as you kind of optimize and compact down the amount of bytes you use in the Bitcoin blockchain, you kind of need a layer 2 explorer to actually visualize what was really going on there. And so, yeah, like Simon was just saying, like if you peg in Bitcoin into Liquid, like you can, on the Liquid Explorer, it'll link back to layer 1, and it's really cool. Maybe, someday it'll be visualized even more intelligently like that, whereas a block explorer isn't like this 2-dimensional thing, but it's like a 3-dimensional thing or something really cool where, because you have this like one row of blocks, but maybe you have a layer 2 row of blocks above it, and they're somehow pegged, or, like you can kind of imagine what the future of this Bitcoin full stack is going to become, right? And we have to support everything.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what about the Liquid peg in and peg out? Can you tell us a little bit, what does that look like? What will we see?
Yeah, I mean, Simon and I have talked about developing a kind of wallet for mempool that would allow you to easily, like with the push of a button, just peg in or peg out between BTC and LBTC. And this is really cool because it fits into kind of like the overall vision of no KYC Bitcoin exchanging. So for example, you could go from like Tether USD to LBTC, and then you go from LBTC to Bitcoin. all without any KYC and just, using atomic swaps between either in the Liquid chain or between the Liquid and Bitcoin blockchains. And so that'll be really cool as like an alternative way to trade Bitcoin against fiat without doing any shitcoinery, without doing any, DEX stuff. I mean, of course, BISC is like a really good way it's like a fiat on-ramp. And maybe BISC will eventually integrate with Liquid, or maybe BISC will make its own Liquid, like the BISC side chain that's similar. And you could go in between, you could trade LBTC for BISC BTC if BISC wants to custody, but maybe they don't for security or legal reasons, right? So it's all very complex and stuff. But I think mempool, no matter what, mempool is going to be like supporting everything, and no shit coins, Bitcoin only, and no KYC. I think maybe Simon, this is what we talk about a lot. We want to be like the true cypherpunk ideology block explorer. Simon had a really good narrative. He compared it to like Nicolas Dorier, basically saying to BitPay, I will obsolete you, in that very famous tweet. It's like we're kind of doing that to blockchain.info, right? Blockchain.info is like this closed source shitcoin explorer with tons of ads and no SegWit, and generally just not being just not acting in the Bitcoin community's interest, acting in their own interests. And so Simon and I have like a very strict cypherpunk manifesto on our like internal notes, like everything has to be open source, no shitcoins. What do you think, Simon? How should we do it?
Yeah, sounds about right. I like the whole idea of like this new wave. I see this new wave of more true to Bitcoin infrastructure that we're seeing with all this run your home node software, run your own B2B pay server, no BitPay. That's like the past, and we're doing the same with the block explorer basically, and
right,
maybe more.
Having to like trust some website to be your block explorer, both for security and privacy, really sucks. And so that's kind of like one of our visions now, is that we could totally decentralize the block explorer by having our own federation of mempool backends all over the world. And this is just people on a Raspberry Pi at home running mempool backend, and kind of like how maybe Electrum has a network of Electrum servers that you can use publicly. If there was like 10 or 20 mempool nodes out there that you could query all at the same time, and they all agree that your transaction was confirmed on the blockchain, and it was all routed through Tor, so nobody, there's no risk to your privacy, and it's all through like a really slick app UI front end that could even run on your phone or something. I mean, just to truly decentralize the block explorer concept entirely, so that exactly like what Simon's describing, where BitPay would be like the history, using blockchain.info would be the history, right? You would use an app that queries 20 backends, including your own if you have one, right? And there's a lot of ways to make like the block explorer next generation.
Yeah, and we're working hard as well on making it hostable, right? On like a Docker image and stuff like that. I know you're working hard at that right now with Stripe.
Yeah, that's my job. So basically the vision is we could even like offer this as a product someday, but basically want to have like a kit with the mempool full node. And some other full node installers have been integrated with mempool, like MyNode, and a few others are working on it now, where it's just going to be like one of their apps on their app store. But we actually want to make our own kind of offering that's really locked down. And the challenge is that it's so resource intensive to run the Electris backend on a Raspberry Pi. So I'm not even running Linux. I'm running FreeBSD on a Raspberry Pi. With like special file system hacks and patches, that I've made to Electris to make it fit on like a 1 terabyte SSD. And there's a lot of really low level optimizations that make it work. And if we can do that and have this mempool full node on a Raspberry Pi with the wallet, with the Liquid swap tool, or USD, with Tether, and really give people like a totally cypherpunk compatible way to do Bitcoin trading without KYC, everything open source, running on your own hardware at home, all routed over Tor. I feel that would be like, the true vision of what we could really accomplish with this open source project, without being like a company, right? I said this on Stephan's podcast a long time ago, but like companies don't really have a place in Bitcoin, right? It's about the open source projects like BTC Pay or Mempool or BISC, right? Are all excellent examples of the future of how they will push the BitPays out and the blockchain that info's out, right? It'll all be Raspberry Pis at home.
Yeah, I mean, look, certainly I'd love to see that kind of vision come to fruition, right? I guess my question would also just be around how will you make it work in terms of like revenue and like model, like sustainability, right? What are you guys thinking at this point with mempool.space?
Yeah, we don't make any money yet. That's a good. We talk about that sometimes. I mean, we could do a sponsorship model. If you donate to us, kind of like maybe some open source foundations do that model where you can become like a member and stuff. That's one ethical way. Another way is selling actual product. So, for example, if we sell a full node device with a display and SSD and everything built in real nice for $500, and we sell a limited run of 500 of them, well, that's $250,000. We can pay Simon's rent on that, and it's just that's the beauty of only having like 2 people in the project. You don't have this crazy burn rate. You don't have an office. The only expenses we really have are like servers and a data center and living expense. Like it's not a huge, we don't need VC funding. All right, that would be like the one of the best ways to ruin the project is to like make a company, raise millions of dollars of VC funding. It's like, no, we just need a little bit from some cool sponsors from the community directly supported, and people want to buy our products. And there's, that's like the honest way to do a Bitcoin business, right? Is to just keep everything open source, give it away for free, but sell your product for a fair price. And there's plenty of Bitcoin only people in the space. Like CoinKite is a great example where they sell cold cards or the USB
open
clock. Yeah, like it's beautiful artwork. Like it's something that you're very happy to pay a premium price for. It's completely open source. You could hack it, and it's ethical, right? It's not like some of these offerings that are like closed source or like, look at like the 21 Bitcoin computer, like just weird stuff, right? Like it has to make sense both on the business side and the cypherpunk side for us to really want to do it. So we're getting there. We're certainly getting there. Maybe we'll have a product or, if we do like some kind of swap backend. I mean, this is one of the reasons I joined the Liquid Federation, is so that I can peg out LBTC to Bitcoin. And if we have some kind of swap backend where mempool will trade USD Tether for LBTC, as part of the mempool wallet, maybe we could take a percentage of that or something.
Yeah.
Or, actually BISC has been compensating us for, our development. That's a really cool thing. Is one of the open source projects I contribute to, BISC, is funding the other open source project I contribute to, mempool, right? So that's like just the dream, right? Is
right.
Like the centralized autonomous organization is signing my paycheck, get paid in hard money. So that's the dream, and we'd like to keep it at that level of moral cypherpunk ethos, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I mean, Simon's out there in Vietnam. He's digital nomad.
Are you doxing me?
Dude, you're wearing a mask and you named Simon. Like,
but yeah, that's cool. I think the whole idea of keeping your approach is lean, right? That's also a good idea in terms of kind of keeping this sustainable. And I guess many hardcore Bitcoiners obviously store a significant portion, or if not all, of their wealth in Bitcoin. And as over the years, it's like the runs will happen and so on. Maybe that's also enough to kind of keep things sustainable for the people working on these things and developing these things as well. So there's maybe a little bit of that, and also the products, as you mentioned, like being able to sell a node product or the swapping in and out of Tether and LBTC service as well. Yeah, I guess you've had. I mean, you probably had like offers to advertise on the site as well. So I guess that can be difficult because you're kind of like, well, no, we want to, we don't want to do that model. We want to, have this other model.
Yeah, I just hate ads. Actually, there was a small ad the first year when the site was very small. I got it, but I just waited until I could cancel that partnership because I really hate ads actually. So.
I actually love internet ads. I think we should give all of our privacy data to Google and Facebook tracking. Dude, like if you think about it, if we had ads on Mempool, it wouldn't really make sense because you could just fork the project and remove the ads, right? Or you could install it locally or something like this. And so a lot of times the cypherpunk ethical model will align with the business model in that kind of way. So that's why I'm saying, like, we actually have to sell some physical, tangible product or provide some, back-end swap service that basically provide liquidity or, provide an actually useful service. Ads are not a useful service, right? And honestly, like, you only have to buy the server once. And after that, it's running for years. Maybe you need one or two more servers, but it's not like a huge expense to run the site, even with the very high traffic loads that we're getting. So I think, for Simon and I, we're not looking to like get rich. We're looking to like make a contribution to the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah.
And if we can pay our rent from doing it, great. But
and there's also the patronage model, right? So for example, GitHub has sponsors program. Some people use like Patreon and things like that. Maybe that's also a model that Mempool could explore of like, hey, if you want to have like a paying supporter of Mempool, and maybe they can do something to kind of show, hey, I'm a paying supporter of Mempool. So, I'm supporting some like Bitcoin infrastructure or something like that.
Yeah, I think GitHub has a pretty cool model where if you sponsor someone on GitHub, like your profile photo will like appear on their page and vice versa. I feel people are a little bit reluctant to just kind of give money away without getting something back in return. And so maybe we could do that on our about page. We could have like a supporters or sponsors section, kind of like how the Patreon guys do it on YouTube, where at the end of the video they'll have like a scroll by list of all the Patreon supporters, and so just the supporters having their name there, I think they feel a little bit warm and fuzzy inside for their contributions. And so we're obviously very happy to get some donation support and prominently thank you for it on our website if you want to do that. We just haven't really had any sponsors so far. Maybe we should add it.
Yeah, well, maybe there'll be some Bitcoin company who wants to put some money into it and say, hey, we sponsor mempool.space, check them out or whatever. Maybe it makes sense for certain companies to do that. Maybe if they have a lot of on-chain transactions or something,
Like BTC Pay Foundation model is a good example, right? They have Kraken and Square and a few other large Bitcoin companies sponsoring them with like pretty sizable donations too, right? I mean, like Simon, if some Bitcoin company came to us and said, yeah, we'll give you like $100,000, just put our logo on your website, what would you say?
Sure.
Right? It's like, why not? But yeah, as long as you're not doing any ads or unethical stuff, I think that's a fair.
Fair way to work it. Yeah,
for sure.
So with, I guess, mempool.space, we've got a few different things, a few aspects to it, right? You got the Bitcoin on-chain transactions, you got Liquid, you got some of these BISC you mentioned. With, say, something like Lightning, I guess maybe it's a bit more difficult there in that case because it's not necessarily on-chain, or I guess you could say the channel opens and closes. Maybe you could do something there. I don't know exactly.
Lightning is a bit more tricky. It's a completely separate network, so it would require additional infrastructure, but there might be a way of making some kind of logical connection.
Well, there's a few Lightning Explorers, right? That already
Yeah,
exist.
they're
I think
Lightning
I use like
Explorers.
one
So should
one
they
One
make
ML.
ML.com.
absolutely
Yeah, one
an
ML is cool.
opportunity for reinventing like a Lightning Explorer and making that
Sure,
beautiful as well. But now with Taproot and stuff, it's going to be hard tracking the link between
Right,
on-chain and
yeah.
off-chain though.
True.
So
That'll
Yeah,
be
that's a good
interesting to
point.
see. Yeah.
Like right now, Simon has it so if a transaction has certain opcodes, he can actually tag it as like a layer 2 peg out or something, which could be like from Lightning or Liquid back to the main chain. And yeah, that's just not going to be possible with something like Taproot, right?
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting to see, and even another example might be stuff like coin joins as well, of kind of seeing, oh, okay, this much coin join volume. Like as a quick example, you know, I'm sure you know Clark Moody's dashboard. He's got an interesting little panel there for Samurai Whirlpool, and it's got this is the amount of spending capacity inside Samurai Whirlpool, which is an interesting kind of idea also. Again, I think he's doing something where he's like scanning the chain to understand on the basis of what's in the opcodes in the scripting and so on. But I mean, these are just kind of interesting ideas. So I guess go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say like that's something Simon and I talk about a lot too. Like, well, what is the scope of the mempool dashboard, right? Like, should we have, you know, coin join liquidity? Is that like part of the mempool? You know, like for things like even like the difficulty adjustment or the money supply, should we have like a run the numbers page? You know, this is the kind of stuff we discuss every day and have very passionate you know, arguments about like, yes, we should make like this, or no, we should keep it simple, you know. And the end result is always good, right? Because we have such strong opinions. So at the end, Simon's either like, no, you're an idiot, Wiz, or he maybe eventually come around a few months later, be like, all right, maybe that's not such a terrible idea.
Yeah, that's cool. So in terms of like, I guess, future kind of growth of the site, what is like a typical user that you have in your mind? Is it someone who like, is it basically just people who want to kind of target their fee, or do you have like other kind of like target users in mind?
I think there's one kind of user that goes to the site deliberately to check on the fees and maybe be a bit intermediate to, as you said, like looking at the blocks and the mempool and make your own estimation of what might be a correct fee. And then you have the user that's because the mempool.space has already been integrated in a couple of wallets and one Australian exchange already. So
Bitteroo,
Bitteroo. So when people just that you have maybe a regular user just clicking on a link and then they ended up at this site that shows you very easy to understand and read, like when is your transaction going to be confirmed. Maybe live you see like a progress bar or something. So that's maybe something that needs improving today, or that we can work more on. Like that's just you're just thrown into this site to track your transaction basically, and I want that site to be like the perfect, easy to use view.
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because like for other projects, you typically think about them maybe from the use case down. So for example, with something like Hive One, there's only like maybe 3 or 4 use cases they're really optimizing for. Like if you're an influencer, you want to see your score, or if you're a newbie, you want to know who to follow. Those kinds of use cases are very straightforward. But with a block explorer, it's more like, well, we're just kind of indexing all of this information and kind of putting it out there. And it's harder to say like why one person uses a block explorer, or even how one person uses a block explorer could be very different from how another person uses a block explorer. And like we just pushed out this recent, you know, dashboard update, and we got like a lot of mixed feedback. Some people love it. Some people say, oh, the previous one was better, or like this or like this. And that's why I was kind of saying to Simon, well, maybe the dashboard needs to be like completely user configurable, and that's because, you know, it's kind of impossible to make everyone happy with one size fits all designs.
Yeah. I think also there's a scope there that as the site becomes more popular, it actually becomes a way for people to educate themselves also, right? Like if you're a beginner and just trying to learn about how the mempool works, it's actually quite a useful site.
I actually heard from a guy that teaches at university, and he's using mempool.space to explain the blockchain to his students, because, and that's very interesting.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of the ones you know about already who are linking to mempool.space. Like I know you mentioned, like there's Bitteroo, for example, and there's some of these other wallets that point to.
Yeah, there's one Lightning wallet that I like, which is the BLW wallet, and that uses mempool.space as a. And then there's another Bitcoin Lightning wallet called Blixt wallet, BLIXT, which is also using mempool.space as default. So
Electrum, I know Electrum has it.
It's not a default, but yeah, it's in there, and there's a bunch of these.
True, it's not the default.
Has the, and also the BISC, of course, has mempool.space as a default, BISC, right? So that's what everyone's using there. So I really like when people just like, oh, this is the best Explorer, like which I just built 6 months ago, basically, or the Explorer we see today, and everyone.
It's really amazing to see, like, we're not even asking them to add it. Some random user will do like a pull request to that project, and it's really cool to see the community love.
It feels really community driven. I just see it spreading on Twitter, and I'm tagged here and there, and people are starting to using it all just organically, and that's a beautiful thing to see. I'm very humbled. Especially these past 6 months. And as I said, this version 2 that we have live right now with the full block explorer, we just went live with this in March, I believe. So it's not, I mean, it's been gone very fast this past 6 months.
And if you compare it to what other users say about other block explorers, they're either like neutral, like it's okay, they just kind of use it, or they totally hate it, right? Like in the case of blockchain.info, like how long did it take him to add SegWit? Like how many years did it take him to add support for SegWit? And the ads and the shit coins and the airdrops and all this stuff they're just spamming their users with. People hate that. And we're just trying to give the users exactly what they want. Slick design, real-time, modern, fast server, all the integrations that they could want, and people love it. Like why is it so hard to give the community what they want, right? Like, why do you have to be like an evil company and just spam them with shit coins and stuff? Why can't you be a cypherpunk and do it ethically? Why are we the only ones? like Simon said, we even had the Block Explorer live for like 6 months. How can we be the best one already? Like that's we're just two guys. We don't have millions of dollars of VC or some ridiculous amount of resources.
Yeah. How does actually the mempool.space, the website, compare with the ones who want to run it on, say, MyNode or those node packages? Like, I understand they're different versions. What's the difference there?
Well, the version that is running on the MyNode is the first version, which is made for Bitcoin Core only. So pulls all the information directly from the Bitcoin Core node.
So it's only a mempool visualizer.
Yeah,
right?
It's not a block explorer. But you can just track transactions, basically. Search for transactions. True. That's what you can do and see where they're located, and you get the fee estimation. So you basically get the front page with the blockchain and mempool.
But the V2 installer is coming soon. It's just quite a bit of work to kind of tame the beast that is this Electris backend to work, with decent performance on a Raspberry Pi. Even if you have 8 gigabytes of RAM on a Raspberry Pi, it's very resource intensive. Like you can get it up and running, but it just takes a really long time to index the blockchain on that low level. Even on my really fast beefy servers, it takes a long time for Electris to run. So you can imagine on like a little Raspberry Pi with a little SSD, it's like a week you're looking at to index the blockchain. So yeah. It's not.
It creates a huge index of all the transactions, all the outputs, all the addresses, right? And that index is like 1 terabyte big or something. Just for the
After
index
it's compacted is 1 terabyte. So it's a real challenge to even, if you don't have 2 terabytes to get it to work on a 1 terabyte drive, which is expensive, right? To buy a 2 terabyte SSD is like maybe $350 just for the SSD. And then you need the Raspberry and the case and all the other accessories. If you want a display, you're looking at $600 just in parts for a mempool full node. So it gets kind of pricey if you want to run it at home. But we have lots of... we have like guys like MZ, who's another Bisq contributor with me. He runs a mempool instance. Devin at Bisq. Yeah, we had a few cool users who are actually running the V2 backend, with the full block explorer, exactly like it is on mempool.space. Maybe not with all the networks we added, but they're running it on their own powerful servers just because they found our GitHub repo and they figured it out. Even though the installer's not totally ready yet, they kind of hacked it together and they got it working. So. Shout out to those guys. We got some cool users, a nice little community come together.
Nice. Well, I guess, we're sort of getting to the last kind of 5 or 10 minutes. So maybe we'll chat a little bit about, I guess, future directions with mempool. So what sort of things do you anticipate coming in the next, couple of years with mempool.space?
Good question.
It'd be nice to have like a wallet, right? Because a wallet is mostly blockchain visualization and private key management, right? So we've got the fee estimation, we've got the blockchain visualization. We just need to add like a private key management and maybe like an XPub scanner. And it wouldn't be like a huge amount of work to make a wallet, right? And if we just use some Trezor or some hardware wallet for the key management side, that saves us a lot of work too. So it'd be really cool to make like a wallet and maybe even some kind of swap backend, like I said, where you could go in between Tether, USD, basically just to give people an easy way to trade Bitcoin for fiat tokens without KYC. Because you can do that on like the Liquid blockchain as an atomic swap or other ways too. I don't know, Simon, what do you think? What should we add next?
I don't know, man.
We argue about this so much.
We are taking one day at a time, and
that's totally fair as well, right? And I think you've got to remember as well, you can't be all things to all people. So, Yeah.
Well, there's a ton of stuff that I'd like to see. Like, I'd like to have more statistics and data and graphs and stuff, so that you can follow how the fees are turning out and stuff. There's a lot of since we have a full blockchain, we have a lot of data that can be processed and can be visualized in interesting ways. So I'm looking at stuff that haven't already been done on other block explorers. So we can add some more fun data.
I think in the next few weeks too, Simon's going to be working on like this new Bisq markets visualization kind of website. So you'll be able to see like all the Bisq, trades and real-time prices and stuff. I don't know if it'll be part of the main mempool site or maybe we'll put it on its own, but I don't know. But it'd be cool to have that like a Bisq dashboard, right? Little things like that mean a lot to the users who need them every day.
Yeah. So like what sort of stuff would you have on a Bisq dashboard?
Kind of like, Crypto Watch or one of those sites that has lots of charts and you can see all the executions and the offer books and stuff. That's more like market visualization than mempool visualization. But, Bisq is able to compensate us for working on these kind of projects for Bisq. So it's kind of cool to, keep it all in the community kind of thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like a cross-subsidization-ish model or something. Well, sort of. Kind of like budget, I guess, in some ways. Yeah.
It's very censorship resistant.
Yeah, well, that's cool as well. Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool thing as well. Like, it's like people can build out these entirely, Bitcoin economy products and projects, and it's like in line with the Bitcoin ethos of like kind of not being dependent on any particular government or some particular central bank or bank to kind of allow this transaction or allow people to do this. So I'm excited to see where this goes and where people kind of go with these kinds of open source projects. And I think over the next couple of years we'll see a lot more people come into it and really start using these things. But I think all these projects, it relies on word of mouth as well, right? Because these open source projects and stuff that we talk about, they don't have like big marketing budgets. They're really spread based on word of mouth, and people in a meetup group, and they might tell some friend at a meetup, oh, hey, this is how you do it. You look up here and go there, and it's really just spreading from that. And so it relies on word of mouth.
Yeah, the community gives us love all the time on Twitter. Like whenever we push a new feature or a new design tweak or anything, word of mouth, man, it really spreads. And it's crazy to look at the stats, like how many users we have now. Like 20,000 like unique people on the site. Like, we're gonna buy more servers soon,
Yeah. Will the server costs get really expensive, or is it kind of manageable for you guys?
I mean, I own and operate all the servers, and I have a lot of friends growing up. So running my own ISP, I'm in a really good position to, operate the mempool.space website, and also operate like a lot of other stuff for BISC. And BISC actually compensates me for running the Mempools Explorer for BISC use too. So it all kind of comes around and goes around. And it's the cool thing about it is that you only have to buy a server one time, right? So it's kind of like making a hosting company just for mempool.space. After a while, you ROI on the infrastructure expenses, and then you can buy, you can put that money back and buy more servers and kind of scale it up. So it comes around and goes around. It works out very well.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're just about it. We're kind of just waiting for the next guest and host.
Joined. It's like 2 or 3 other people here.
Yeah, I don't know if they're
ready.
The next person, is it Rollo and Dan? I think.
Yeah. But yeah, check out mempool.space if you haven't already. It's
definitely
it's something we worked very hard on. Well, Simon worked very hard on it. I just run the server. But mempool.space. We're really trying to make the best block explorer mempool visualizer for the Bitcoin community. Totally open source and no bullshit, no shit coins. Just exactly what it should be. So. Check it out at mempool.space or send us a message on Twitter if you like it or hate it or have some feature requests or bug reports or any feedback. Yeah. But thanks a lot, Stephan, for the great interview. And
thanks, Stephan, for the chat.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for joining me.